Hi everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor, the Art Impressions Way. And this week's project is another one of our 2018 releases, so brand new project. This is from the door set. And the door set actually comes with 3 different doors. So this is the one we're using right here, but there are also 2 others in here that would be really fun to use. So in addition to that set, we're going to use these some of these textures. So these are wall textures, and inside this set are stones and bricks and slats, and we're going to do more with this later on. So for this project, we're going to use the bricks right here. Also in this one, we're going to use the cobblestones. So these right here, let me just turn that so that you can see it. So these little cobblestones right here. This also is going to be a really fun set to use. I'm going to do more with this later on. So this is like ground or paths or cobblestones. Also, we are going to use from the new foliage set, so foliage set 3, we're going to use these 3 right here. So the field grass right and left, and then this tiny little vine. And then in the brand new mini watercolor set, flower set, we're going to use 2 of these. So this one right here and this little guy right here. So these 2. I think that is it. We're also going to use the teeny tiny grass from the original foliage set. So let's get going. So we're going to start out by stamping that door. And all of those doors will work the same way. And we're going to start out by inking it 2 colors. So the number 86 African Violet, we're going to ink it first in that. And we'll just get all of this inked up here. Ink that really good. And then over the top of that, we're going to ink it with the sepia. So sepia is that 3-dimensional color. This is what makes everything look 3-dimensional. So we're going to ink that in that as well. So 2 colors, and then we're going to stamp it right into the center of our watercolor paper. So don't press too hard on that. Just a good even pressure is going to give us the look that we want. Okay, so this is always the first step. So those of you who have been watching these videos, you know that we always start with the basic image. And we ink that, we stamp it on the watercolor paper, and then we add water to it. So we just pull this color out of the line, so dip your brush, pinch it off, and just start by working your way around these lines. Just drag this color out. If you start getting too much color on your brush, just clean it off, and then just come back and do it again. So just pull all this color out. So easy. And this is always a good starting point. It's kind of nice to have a starting point. I think that helps with the stress of these projects. You know, when you look at a white piece of paper, sometimes that can be stressful because you don't know where to begin. So with these projects, that is not a problem. We always have a starting point. Okay, so that looks pretty good. That's a good start. We can always come back and add more color to that later. So let's go on to the next step. Now we're going to use that teeny little flower. So this is from that brand new mini flower set. I love these little guys. Sometimes you need those small images when you're doing a door or window or something farther back in the background. And these little guys are just perfect. So we're using this one right here. So I'm going to ink that up in a bright color. So how about the violet? And I'm just going to kind of stamp that wherever. And you can see I'm putting this in here a few times. So I'm stamping this about 3 or 4 or 5 times. Just get that in there a bunch. It doesn't really matter where you're stamping it. It really doesn't. Just get some color in here. By the time we blend this all up together, it just all kind of comes together. So never stress out about that. Okay, once we've got that down, let's switch color now and let's go on to our vine. So we're going to ink this little vine, and I'm using the number 72. And let me just turn my paper a little bit so that I can get a better grip on this stamp. And you just kind of want to put this, you know, wherever. I feel like it's kind of hanging off the door, so we can kind of drape this off a little bit. And like I said, it really doesn't matter where you put this in. You just want to make sure that you're getting it in there a few times. So more than once for sure, and 3 or 4 is actually better. So get that stamped in there. That looks pretty good. If you see some open areas, you can always add a little bit in there. but we've got this in here pretty good. Okay, so now that that's done, let's go ahead and add water to it. So dip your brush and clean it off, and let's start with the green. So the green foliage, we're gonna just add some water to this and kind of blend it. These are very tiny little lines, so you really don't want to get too much water on here. Just dab, and you don't have to get every single leaf either. Just kind of dab at the image as a whole and just blend. It's all gonna come together. And you know, it's okay to get some of that color in there from the door. It's all right. Kind of mix that up a little bit. And then clean your brush off and pinch it off, and then go back to the purple now. You can see how that really just saturates the color. Really brings that purple out. Don't be afraid to go outside the lines or outside of the parameters of the image. That's okay. You can do that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's go on to the next step, and let's do something with these windows. So I'm going to put some color on my palette. This is the number 29, so Prussian blue. And let's mix a little of the African violet with it. So I'll blend those two colors together. And dip your brush and take a little of this color. And we're going to just make some triangles here. So you're just gonna kind of draw a straight line across the top. See, like this. And color in this little triangle. So this is so easy. Don't stress out about this. I always love having some freehand things in these videos because it's a little stressful to try to do it on your own, but when we're doing it together on the video, it's not quite as intimidating. And you know, when you try these things, you realize, oh, that's not hard at all. I can totally do that. And you can see what's happening here is that we're creating a curtain. So you could maybe make a valance up here, a little scallop, and color the rest of it in with the darker blue. Or you could do another, maybe a valance and another little curtain down below. Really, your imagination can just go crazy with this, so fun. And then just do a few little lines in here like this. Don't make a big deal about that. That's not a big deal. Just put a few little lines in. We're just giving the idea of the curtains and the drape of the curtain. So let's pull a little bit of this color down now so we can see that this is a window pane. Just drag a little bit of this color out. And you can see that kind of sets that curtain back a little bit. Okay, so let's go on to the next step, and we're gonna add some color now to the walls. So we wanna use that texture. We wanna put those bricks on, and we need to add the color first. This is so easy to use, and the way that we do it is we add some color first. So just take some of this color off your palette. You want it very light. So just drag this on and pull some of that color from the door. That's okay. It's okay to mix it in with the green. That's okay. And just pull it out a little bit. And then go ahead and do the other side. Just kind of mix it in here. Remember, this is the idea of things, so nothing has to be concrete. And once you kind of get that concept that, you know, we're just giving the idea, I think that makes things easier and less stressful. I hope it does. Okay, so let's let that dry just a little bit, and in the meantime we can pull some of this color out. So we're gonna kind of leave this door white, but we don't want to leave it uncolored. So let's drag a little of this color out just so we can kind of muddy up this white a little bit. Pull some of this color onto the landing there. And that looks pretty good. Okay, it looks like that's pretty dry. So let's go ahead and put this texture on. So you can see that it's a pretty large area, and most of the time you're only going to use a small area of it. And we're just going to give the idea of the bricks on the wall. So we want to line up this edge, and I put this right on the edge of my block so that I can really see exactly where that's going to stamp. And I'm using a light gray. This is actually number 40. But you can use any light gray, and you want to just lightly ink this and just kind of here and there. Don't make a straight line here, just lightly ink it, and then we're going to stamp it right alongside the door just like this so they can see the idea of the bricks. Now let's turn the paper over So turn it upside down, and we're gonna do the same thing again. So just kind of here and there. And actually, let's just clean this off first because we don't want this to be too dark. And it's okay to stamp it a little bit over the foliage. That's okay. It's not gonna show up. Okay, so you can see that we've got our bricks in there. And if you put the color in first and then do the bricks over the top, you really don't have to do much. And I love that about it. I love it when you don't have to do much and you just get the impression, you get the idea without having to do a lot of work. Love it. Okay, so I'm going in between just a little bit, softening these lines a little bit. And really, this is all we have to do. You can see the idea of the bricks in here. You can also, you know, if it comes out here in the light area too much, you can also soften that and blend it out with your brush. So we can always do that. Let's add just a little bit of color to the very top up here. We don't really need to see too many bricks up at the top. Really, mostly what we want to do is see it on the side. Okay, so let's go on to the next step, and we're going to add some flowers and foliage in here. So I'm using those grasses. This is the left and the right. So let me just grab that other one. So it takes a little bit to get used to how these stamp. So just remember it's the reverse. This one's kind of leaning to the left, so that means it's going to go to the right when you stamp it. So let's ink this up. Let's just pick a different green here. So this is the number 15. And we're just gonna ink it a few times. So just a couple of times like that. I really, really like these new grasses. It's taken me a long time to add new grasses because I've been so happy with what I have, but I really, really like these light, thin lines because they really, really give a different look. And I do love that about it. Okay, so let's add a little water. We don't need a lot because these are very light, simple little lines. So just like that, let's pull a little of this color out. And let's put some flowers in there. So this is that tiny little long stem that is part of the new set. And let's add some bright color to this. So just the blooms, we're gonna add the number 20 magenta. And then let's add the stem with that number 15. And we're just gonna go a couple of times here. And let's go ahead and ink it again. You can see why these little tiny blooms are so important when you set them back like this. It just gives us the right perspective. So in here, and that looks good. And we'll just go ahead and add a little bit of water to this, just a tiny bit. You can see how that really just pops that color out. Love it. Just touch it. So cute. Okay, let's do one more step and let's add those cobblestones. You can leave that off if you want to, or you can add the cobblestones. They're really fun to use. And the way that they sit on the block is the little tiny 3 are in the back. So when you're holding this up, the large stones are in the front, the small stones are in the back. So it's gonna sit like this. And we're just gonna ink that with a really light color. So this is that number 40. We don't want this too bold. And we're just gonna stamp it right in front of the door. So that looks pretty good right there. And when we go to pull the color out of the lines, we're just gonna pull it from the bottom. So just from the bottom like this. And you can see that's gonna just pop those stones right up. Okay, that looks good. Let's just add a little grass to it. So here's where we're using that tiny little grass from the foliage set, the original foliage set. And we can just put a little of this in. Remember just the idea of it. And just kind of pull this color up and out. That looks pretty good. You can add a little green into the background where that step is. Just put a little bit right under this line here. And just drag that out. Don't have to do a lot. It looks like I stamped that really pretty light, so I'm just gonna add a little darker line under here. So I really, really stamped that light. So you can always come in and do this if you feel like you've made a mistake or you haven't stamped something quite right, don't be afraid to use your fine tips. I do this all the time. As many times as I stamp these things, I don't always get it right. So I don't know if that's comforting for me to tell you that, but I don't always get it right. But it's easy to fix. Okay, that looks pretty good. We have about finished our little doorway and finished this project for this week. So thank you so much for watching. One last thing to do, and that is to sign and date. Don't forget to do that on your projects. Make sure you sign and date. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and I will see you all next week.